to talk. So to back up for just a second to allude to kind of what Philip and Ram both said about entrepreneurs. So and the system that Ram was talking about, we kind of say, and what I tell all of our inventors are, entrepreneurs work at the intersection of disciplines. So I think that's absolutely critical for a successful business venture and a successful entrepreneur. You have to have that core competency, but you also have to put yourself in the right system or the right situation in order to work at that intersection. Texas Tech, just as a little background, we are out in Lubbock, Texas, where we're called the hub city because there's not much around us. So all the smaller communities kind of congregate in Lubbock, but we have a very strong academic research setup. I mean, we have a law school, we have a medical school, we have a health sciences center, we have a very robust college of engineering, a college of agricultural sciences and natural resources. So we're kind of isolated out here in West Texas with all of these different skill sets and students and inventors and researchers all within those different colleges out here in West Texas, Lubbock, Texas. So it, I would say, is more convenient for us to operate at the intersection of disciplines because we have all this scientific expertise and business expertise out here in West Texas with no one to talk to but ourselves. So it's great. Texas Tech, just so you guys know, we do about $300 million a year in research across the system. I file about 150 patent applications a year. So we're doing a lot of innovating, a lot of inventing, and we're going in the right direction. I've worked with Ram for a long time, and he does have some very successful products out there. One thing that Ram also mentioned is the kind of entrepreneurship ecosystem, those innovation hubs that everyone is forming, and we're no different. So in about 2015, 2016, we created our own innovation hub, and what it really does is help facilitate some of those connections, at the intersection of disciplines. So it's open to everybody across the Texas Tech system, and students, faculty, even staff can go there and they can actually make those connections. So anybody who has that core competency to potentially be an entrepreneur can go there and say, hey, I don't have an idea, I don't have a team, but I have this drive and I want to pursue something. And they can go and say, well, here's a researcher who has a great idea, but doesn't necessarily want to do the business side of things. You two connect, we'll give you some funding, and you're off to the races, potentially forming a startup venture. So I would say, as far as fostering entrepreneurship at Texas Tech University, that's one thing that's very critical to that. The tech transfer side of things. So our office is really there from day one. So you invent something, you come talk with our office. We then file patent protection for that. Especially in biotech industry, it's almost impossible to actually commercialize something unless you have that patent protection, unless you kind of have that legal monopoly, so that your investors say, okay, well, we're going to make money on the back end off of this. So that's a conversation we have a lot, and we champion patents to our faculty. But yeah, like I said, we file about 150 a year, which is good. We license out probably about 30 different technologies this year. So yeah, we're trending in the right direction. We're doing a lot of deals. As part of that, so fostering this startup ecosystem, the licensing and tech transfer side of things, I mean, we had to be flexible. It used to happen where we'd have a technology and then we'd have a large company come in and say, hey, I want that technology. How do I get it? License it to me. I'm going to sell it in the market and pay you guys a royalty rate. Now, large companies are wanting to see technologies de-risk. So they're coming in and they're saying, well, this is the technology, but can you get it to this stage? Maybe a startup is more appropriate so that you can move the technology forward. And so as Texas Tech University, we had to be flexible and implement these startup programs to kind of help de-risk these technologies. And as part of that, with our licensing strategy and our tech transfer strategy, we had to be flexible as well. Startups aren't going to write a big check. They should be putting that money into the startup company and not paying back the university immediately. So we had to rethink some of the ways that we do those startup license agreements. And so I would say it's worked It was a learning curve there about 2015 through 2017, but now we pride ourselves on being easy to do business with startups, which I think is important because, again, you have this entrepreneur, you have this inventor, you put them together, they form this great team. Then they come to us and say, hey, we need access to this technology. Can you transfer it to our company? And then if we're the holdup, that kind of kills the vibe that they've created, right? So we have been flexible with some of the startup deals. We're doing more and more deals with startup companies, but I think that's a very integral piece that often gets overlooked. Is that the university and kind of the mentality specifically of the tech transfer office needs to be one of, hey, we're a partner with you, startup company. What can we do to help? And on the back end, some of those deals we started executing 4 or 5 years ago, those startup companies are now starting to get real investment. They're doing their Series A. They're even having acquisitions. And so then they come back to us and say, hey, our investors need some flexibility on these deal terms. And so we're also flexible on the back end. So the investors come along and say, yeah, we'll put 20 million into this company, but we need to renegotiate some of the terms. The business looks a little bit different now. So I think it's very important for the technology transfer office to be flexible on the back end as well and be there, again, kind of as that partner for that startup company going forward. Just to kind of cap it all off, yeah, I think Texas Tech, we were a little bit unique in that we are, like Ram said, we're kind of out here in West Texas, but we are a R1 research institution. So, I mean, we do a lot of research. We file a lot of new inventions, a lot of patents, and we have a lot of startup companies. And that took a while to build, but I think almost being out here and having a little bit more flexibility and freedom to operate allowed us to move faster than some universities. So yeah, we're trending in the right direction. We're pumping out more startups than ever. We're getting more technologies to market, and we're having those startups now starting to be very successful, again, with some recent big acquisitions and some big funding opportunities that have come through. Thank you guys again.